through fire with shadows on my heels. Scars turn to stories that taught me to feel. Lost in the silence, found in the flame. Now wear my battle cry without shame. This isn't the end, it's where I begin. A soul that remembers the fire within.
Welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit, brought to you by Praxis 33. I'm your host, Daryl Snow. Let's dive in. Today I have Susan May with me. Susan is a homeschool mom. She's a writer. She's a community creator and a coach. And she corrected me on how we met, but we met through a Tony Robbins, Dean Graciosi event, and have just kind of stayed connected in the cyber world. And it's a pleasure for you to be here in person. Finally, took us a little while. But I'm honored that you're here. Also, you are the mother of multiple children, but an autistic child, and that plays a special part in my heart because I have a lot of friends and connection to the autistic world. So, I know that's a tougher road for a mom to handle, but thank you for what you do, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and chat.
So you're currently in Tennessee. Where's home? Where did you grow up?
Oh, that question. Okay, so I grew up in upstate New York, and by upstate, I mean the Rochester, New York area. Yeah, almost Canada. We're not to the Buffalo, to Niagara Falls, but Rochester, New York. And my husband is also from the Rochester, New York area. I actually grew up more in the country. But we met at the University of Rochester. And from there, we have kind of traversed the East Coast. We lived in DC, Northern Virginia, Charlottesville, Virginia, Florida, and now we're in Tennessee.
Wow, that's a lot of travel. May I ask, what was it like growing up in upstate New York?
I really had quite what you could call an idyllic, that's how you say the word, right? Idyllic.
Yeah.
Childhood. I grew up on a farm. My parents tell me we didn't have a lot of money, but I was one of those lucky kids that didn't feel that. I didn't ever feel lacking or wanting. Small school, thrived in school. My mom was a math teacher in high school, and because it was so small, I actually had my mom as a math teacher. Like 9th grade and senior year. And people are always like, oh my gosh, that must have been horrible. I'm like, no, it was great. She just let me sit in the back and talk to my best friend because I was good. I was good at academics. And for some reason, the other kids didn't seem to resent it because it was just such a small, tight-knit community. So I had a great childhood, large extended family. No complaints really about my childhood.
Definitely sounds idyllic. And what does the University of Rochester offer to a young Susan? What would you study there?
Yeah, so I started out as a math major, following in my mom's footsteps, and I got to college level math, and it just kicked my butt. And I was the kind of kid I was used to getting A's easily, and so I got like a B plus, and that was just like the end of the world. That was like no. So I actually changed majors. And I became a brain and cognitive science major, which is basically a mix of psychology. So I had the psychology. I know you're into psychology, right?
Absolutely, yep.
But I also had some of the neuroscience. Like I took a lot of neuroscience courses and learned about science of the brain, which was really cool. And then I was a music minor because I always loved music. But I played basketball at U of R. That was one of the huge draws, is that I was an athlete in high school, and you can't get scholarships. It's a D3 school, but that league is super cool. The U of R is in this league that gets to fly. It's like one of the only D3 leagues where we flew to Boston. We flew down to Atlanta for Emory, St. Louis for Washington University. So it was just a really cool experience. We weren't very good while I was there, but I did enjoy playing. So
Yeah, well, it teaches you a lot more than how to win. It teaches you how to, be a teammate, be actually graceful in your losing, and learning from those. So you learn a lot. I find it interesting that your psychology, your brain major, and your music major, because when I wrote my thesis for my master's, it was on how music heals the brain.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of cohesive parts there. Do you use, now I mentioned your son, do you
Mhm.
use music therapy to help with him?
We haven't done official music therapy, but music is such a part of me. Like I pretty much have music playing almost not constantly, but a large part of the day. And then I taught myself to play guitar. And so often in the evenings I play and sing, and I think he enjoys it.
Nice.
He went through a phase where he didn't want me to just because he wanted, me to be with him. But now he sits and listens. So I guess that's kind of like informal music therapy, you could say.
Nice. When I was in, so I have a bachelor's in graphic design and I have a master's in psychology. But when I was in graphic design school, one of our professors used to play classical music silently, not silently, but subtly in the background.
Mm.
And his classes always had higher scores than any of the other professors. And
Wow.
he knew, because he was a psychology major, he knew that classical music helps learning and processing. And so he would have it on, and his students always had higher test scores than everybody else. So,
That's cool.
yeah, it is a correlation there. But what does your husband do? You met him at the university?
Oh gosh. He is so he works for the University of Virginia. And
Okay.
he's in advancement, which I always just say to people, he's into the money stuff. Like he's learned all about investment, but now he doesn't do investment. He just helps with the finance side of things and organizing and all that. He's very good at his job, so I'm very grateful for him. He is the bring home the bacon guy in our family. So he's everyone loves him at his job, and he has a great attitude about work, about not he's not a workaholic. He is very family oriented and
Hmm.
very like once work's done, it's done. So yeah, I'm very grateful for my husband. He's
And how'd you meet? Frat party?
oh yeah.
Did you?
Well,
Yeah.
no, actually back in the day, like we lived in our dorm rooms. We were like in the same building, but different wings of the same
Right.
building. They were like,
Sure.
co-ed building, but not,
Right.
um, and actually we're almost the same age. He's just 4 months younger than me, but he was the class behind me. So I was like an old sophomore when I met him. He was
Sure.
a freshman. And yeah, he's just super cute, long eyelashes he has. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
how we met. There were some frat parties involved, and yeah, some good times. So yep.
That's awesome. And how many children do you have,
We
Susan?
have three children. Our daughter is turning 18 in 2 weeks. Yeah. So, and then our middle son is just behind her. He's 14 now. He'll be 15 at the end of July. And then our little guy he's 8. He's Carter. Oh, I didn't say my middle son's name is Jerry, and my oldest is Marisol. So yeah.
And is she a math major as well? Music major?
Well,
Basketball player?
actually, my mom tutors both of them, or just teaches them. They do Khan Academy together online because we homeschool all of our children. And both of our kids are like, oh, math, blah, my poor mom. But she loves doing it with them. And I love that my mom's doing it with them. So I don't have to do it with them. So it's like wins all around. It's like Zoom with grandma every week. Because she goes between Florida and New York. So we don't live close by, but they get that connection time in, and she's a good teacher. So I'm
That's
lucky to
awesome.
have her.
I have several friends that a version of homeschooling, they sold all of their house and cars and whatever, and they bought an RV, and they
Hmm.
just travel around the United States with their
Yeah.
kids and their
Yeah.
dogs and whatever, doing
Hmm.
homeschooling that way. And it seems to be becoming more popular, you know?
Oh yeah.
I mean, the parent teacher conferences kind of suck, but you just still have,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no, there's
Um,
a there's a whole group of people that call themselves world schoolers, and that travel the world. And we were very, very flexible. I was basically a hardcore unschooler with my kids. I don't know if you've heard of unschooling.
no,
It basically means I did not create school at home. Even though I was a teacher before I had my children, I taught middle school science and high school science. I didn't I took my kids out of school because I didn't want them to have school. So I'm like, I'm not going to be their teacher. And so you really just focus on your relationships with them and having a very rich home environment. You support them, of course, in everything, and you do all the things, but it's not exactly like school, what people think of as school. And so I really have loved it, and the kids seem to be turning out pretty well, so it's all working out.
I'm curious because A, I've never heard of it, and B, I love the concept. I wish, I would have had that. My stepbrother had it, but voluntarily because he just didn't go to school.
Yeah.
But how does that work with the state? Because I know that
It's a
that's a
great
big
question.
issue. Yeah.
So it's going to vary state to state. So I have lived now in Washington, D.C., Virginia, Florida, and Tennessee. So 3 states plus the District of Columbia. And what I've learned over the years through other homeschoolers and unschoolers is it's legal in every state, and it's possible to unschool. It's going to vary what you need to do, so some states are stricter than others about like what requirements is there testing, or most states really don't have testing, to be honest with you. So most of the states I've lived in have been like low to mid regulation, which means like often you just notify at the beginning of the school year, and you usually notify the school district you're in, hey, we're homeschooling our kids, these are their names and ages. If you have to supply, like sometimes they'll say like you need to supply not a curriculum per se, but just like what you're doing with your kids. And I literally I found early on this like 2 to 3 sentence blurb that was basically, it just covered everything. It was like, through experience, field trips, watching documentaries and reading books, we'll cover these areas. And I started using that in kindergarten, and I just kept using it every year, which was amazing because it's true, it's accurate. And it was a way to not give more than what the state was asking for, which is really important to me and to a lot of homeschoolers. Because what happens if some people start giving like, oh, we're going to be using this curriculum and teaching all of this, and then the state, even if they don't know the law sometimes, and then they start thinking that's required, and then they start requiring other people though, even though it's not. And so you get like this kind of like slide into more regulation that a lot of people really don't want. So yeah, it's a lot easier than you'd think. In some states, there's what they call umbrella schools, where you register with the umbrella school. Like here in Tennessee, I'm registered with an umbrella school. They notify for me. I don't have to test my children. People worry about college. And so like, it's been great to see what my daughter was able to do here. And this is true in a lot of schools. Once they get to a certain age, they can usually register and take courses at a community college, which is a great way for them to get academic experience if they haven't. Like for my daughter, it was really validating for her she took 4 courses this year and she excelled. She did great. And so it kind of confirmed for her, okay, I'm cut out for it if I want to do that, And once you kind of take those college level classes, and if you study to take ACT or something, you can get into college fairly easily. So yeah, it's a lot easier than most people think.
It's interesting because most people are familiar with the concept of homeschooling, which is the curriculum, blah, blah, blah. But the unschooling seems to follow a similar pattern. You just don't have the testing and the regulations,
Yeah.
but you're still kind of teaching them.
Yes. I mean, so unschooling to me, I always say I'm not going to get into this like lately because I'm like, how relevant is it? A lot. It's
Very.
it's relevant to my life because that's how we've raised our children.
Well, I'll stop you right there for just a second while you
Yeah.
collect that thought.
Yeah.
I feel, and I'm not basing this off of anything other than the feeling that I just got when you said it. I feel that since COVID, it's more relevant. And since social media has caused online bullying, it's more relevant.
Mhm.
So I think if more people knew about it and you talked about it more, it
Yeah.
might even become even more relevant. Because
Yeah.
I think people would say, huh, that's a damn good idea for my kid too.
Yeah.
So sorry,
Here's
but
the thing. No, I love where you're going with that. I love your train of thought. what I learned when I started learning about unschooling, because I felt the same way. I started reading about it when my daughter was 18 months old. Okay. So she's almost 18. So that's what, 16 and a half years ago, almost 17 years. I wanted to like shout it from the rooftops because I'm like, because I just started reading stories of families and became so passionate about it, much to my husband's chagrin at the time. Because you have to imagine we're new parents, and we just have one baby, and he's like, "What are you doing? What are you reading about?" Like, no, 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 it's very countercultural. But what I learned is it's not the woman that I love that I learned from the most is her name is Sandra Dodge. She has this website. She's done everything for free. People can look her up if they want to know more about it. But what I learned from her is to actually not use that word teach, because there's a lot of baggage with the word teach. Teach assumes that like a teacher in the front of the room is going to like spout a bunch of things, and then all those kids in the room are going to learn it. And we all know that's not true. We all know that's not true. So teaching, there's like a lot of just misconceptions about teaching. So she kind of like trained us, like she wasn't really training us, but I read her so much to use the word learn. And instead, whenever I could, I used the word learn. And I don't think of myself as my child's teacher, even though many of the things I do might look the same to a lot of people. But I think of them as like I encourage them, I support them, I have conversations with them. I help them find resources when they need to. I connect them with other people in my community when they need that connection. Like if they want to do, physics, and I'm like, I can't remember physics anymore, I'll go find them that. So it's really a lot about your relationship with your kid. That's the other thing that I loved about unschooling is it kept my relationship with my kids so strong. And so most people understand that once kids get to a certain age, you can't control them anymore. But what I learned is like to not try to control them from the start, which was like a lot harder when they're little. Like it's hard to not try to control your kids when, like what they're eating, what they're watching on TV, all this stuff. But instead to like really nurture my relationship with them and maintain that so that as they got older, I still have influence over them. And now I'm like reaping so much reward from that kind of philosophy because we're still so close. We still have conversations every day about everything under the sun. And I'm not worried about them at all. Like they are incredible human beings that are like on the verge of adulthood. And what a relief, especially as I'm parenting their little brother. So yeah, you could say I do love unschooling. It's hard. Most people get turned off right away. They think it's doing nothing. They think there's a whole lot of things that people have to undo in their minds to understand it.
Well, I feel because I did some adjunct teaching at the community college, adjunct professor, and my class was adults who were trying to be entrepreneurs. So I taught small business entrepreneurship, and I got to write my own curriculum. I had to follow their guidelines of what they wanted the student to learn by the end of the semester, but I got to write the curriculum and I got to do it. And so I always did it with no book and real world practicality. And you're doing virtually the same on a smaller scale. But what I feel we both did is we gave them permission to critical think, to not have to fit into a box, to not have to conform to some kind of to-do list. And by harboring critical thinking and relationship building, because now you're giving them permission to express their opinion and have it not invalidated by, oh, it didn't fit in the answer box. Now you're building your relationship stronger, the critical thinking stronger. And now as they progress into adulthood, those are just natural things that happen for them. So I feel that if people got over society's definition of what this is, they might find that it works not only for how they raise their children, but how they interact with their spouse, their partner, their other relationships, friends, whatever. You eliminate the judgment. And coaching is another word that is overused. We're both quote unquote coaches,
Right.
but again, it's overused and it's got a connotation to it. But if you actually help people become authentic in who they are, and to critically think their way through a process, I think you build a much stronger relationship and you have a much more mature outcome. I haven't met your daughter. I don't know your daughter, but I would bet that if I talked to her right now, I would not think she's 18 years old, because I bet she has a more maturity to her in the way she views the world that many 18-year-olds who went through school don't have.
I'm biased. I'm not gonna lie, but you nailed it. She's an incredible young woman, and yeah, she's very mature. And I'm lucky that my middle son and she are super close, super close. And so in a way, she's like his second mother, and he follows right in her footsteps. And so that has made my parenting journey much easier too. So yeah, no, everything you said is spot on.
So how does that translate into what you're having to do with an autistic child,
Yeah,
where the learning skills are different?
yeah, I'm so glad you asked that, because that's exactly where I wanted to go. I'm like, okay, this is what we got to get into. So first of all, I would say that my experience with unschooling and like my whole story, growing up, whatever, and how I had to undo all these beliefs to do this with my kids, set up me and Carter for a lot of success. Like, our story is pretty unique, I think, in the autism world, because of the way he was raised. We didn't rush to get him tested, for number one. We knew by the time between he was 2 and 3 that things were starting to change, that he wasn't, because before that he had been developing like pretty regularly. So we didn't rush to get him tested, because we kept having the discussion and feeling like it'll be a lot of stress on him that seems unnecessary. He's happy, he's healthy, we're keeping him safe. And so, for example, like, I had this philosophy of, my kids are doing the things they need to do, right? Like that if they're doing it, it's because it's good for them. Am I choppy on your end, or is it still okay, Daryl?
Oh, no, you're a little choppy, but you're still coming through. You're good.
Okay.
Yep.
So for example, like, a lot of autistic kids elope, which means they just take off, they just run. And I didn't even know what that word elope meant for a long time. We just knew that Carter ran. We just knew he would run. So
Yeah.
because of that, we always had someone on him. Like, it was either me or my husband or someone that was fast and strong and young enough to keep up with him. And so the little things like that, we just kept up with. We didn't make it a big deal. We didn't make it a worry. He didn't go into schools. He didn't go into therapy. And now what I'm learning, because what I want to talk to you about is like this huge paradigm shift that's happening in the autism world. What I'm learning is that because we did things so differently, he avoided so much trauma and so much stress in his life. And so he has and I'm not saying he avoided all trauma. That's not possible when you can't communicate verbally, like, that's a trauma in itself, that he can't speak and express himself. But there was a whole lot of trauma that we avoided by not putting him into the normal systems. So I'm trying to think, like, what you were actually asking me, like, how it looks different, right, for him.
Well, I think you set up your family. I mean, you didn't know it at the time because you didn't know you're going to have an autistic child, but you set up your family dynamic for homeschooling, unschooling, whatever, to already be equipped to handle that portion of it.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the autistic people that are in my world are more on the Asperger's side, so they're very high functioning.
Yeah.
Yours seems to be different, where it's on the other
Right.
end of the spectrum.
Right.
So that makes it
Yeah.
even a more challenge,
So
right?
we can start by talking about the word, like, high functioning and low functioning. There actually is, like, most people just don't, in our community, just don't even want to use those type of labels anymore, because they're just it's very outdated. It's more the
Sure.
difference that Carter can't speak. He can't use his voice to communicate with us. And so for a long time, people have called autism, kids that have autism that can't speak, nonverbal. That's been kind of the language. Have you heard that term before?
I heard it from you. Yes,
Okay,
nonverbal.
so nonverbal, but we actually don't use that word anymore, because nonverbal came to be equated with, so a lot of people have thought that autism was like a cognitive disability, because they couldn't show us what was going on. And it always looked like these kids didn't understand, because you would say things to them and they wouldn't respond. They wouldn't do what you asked them to. It didn't appear that they were learning new things through their therapies. And so it was presumed that it was a cognitive disability. But now there are more and more and more non-speaking. And we're going to talk a little bit too about not just non-speaking, any autistic or individual that can't use their voice as their means of communication. They could also be like unreliably speaking, which means, I don't know if you've ever seen an autistic person who like motor loops a lot. Like they say a phrase over and over.
Mm-hmm.
They might say like a movie script, or it could just be like a random phrase that, you know, I want to go to the park. I want to go to the park. Or when are we going home? When are we going home? So those type of individuals that seem to have speech, but they can be called unreliably speaking, minimally speaking. And then there's a whole host of other ways that they identify themselves. But the main point being they seem to have speech, but it's not a reliable way for them to communicate with others, to have like a conversation like we're having right now. Okay. So non-speakers and this other group of autistic or other disabilities with this kind of not able to speak have thought to have a cognitive disability, but they don't. They have a motor disability. They actually have apraxia, and it's a disorder of their brain where a person's unable to perform an action when they're asked to do it, even though they understand it in their head. They know what you're asking, even though they want to do it, and even though their muscles work. Like you can see my kid, he's got great muscles. Like he runs and he does all sorts of things, but there's a disconnect between their brain and their body, and they can't do it in the moment when they're asked to all the time. The other thing that makes it tricky is that sometimes they will do it when you ask them, and sometimes they won't. I learned very early on, it's called, they say it's consistently inconsistent, and that confuses parents even more. But what the huge paradigm shift has occurred because many non-speakers are learning what's called spelling to communicate, or there's a few different methods, but basically they're learning. I should have brought my my boards up here. They're learning to point to letters, to spell, to communicate. And that's how we know that they do understand, that they're quite intact. Many of them are, you know, just as intelligent as the people in their same age level, if not more intelligent. So it's a big change that many people don't know about.
No, it sounds very much like a stroke victim. I have my former business partner had a stroke when we had our graphic design company, and he can still do fantastic graphic design work, and he can still speak, and he can still do, but he can't get all the words out, and he can't articulate, you know, what he is wanting to say. He had to relearn like what a chair is and how to open a door and all that stuff, but he's all still in there.
Yeah.
He just can't get it out. So it sounds very much like a stroke victim.
Yes, there are a lot of parallels, and that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, so it's a big change. It has given so much hope to so many families. It's also, you know, it's funny because it feels new to a lot of us. So I can show you. This is the book that I read. It came out 3 years ago. It's written by J.B. Handley. I'll say it so if people are listening. It's called Underestimated: An Autism Miracle. The J.B. Handley is the dad. Jameson is the son. So he learned to spell, to communicate. I think he was 17. And by the next year, I think they wrote this book. And Jamie, the son, wrote the second part of the book himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
let me ask you this, because I know that this is a new concept for many, and especially for those who've been around the psychological world for a long time. How is it over all these years and all the psychological testing that can be done,
Mhm.
why is it still considered a psychological impairment? I want to be careful not to put
Right.
labels, but
Or cognitive, yeah.
or cognitive impairment instead of a motor. Why hasn't that been like discovered?
Right. So that's what I was just starting to get at. It feels new to us. Some form of this kind of communication actually has been around for a long time, like decades, because I know I'm in contact with a dad whose son is like 51, and he's been, I feel like he started in the late 90s. I'm not sure, don't quote me on it, but it's been around for a long time. Part of the problem is there was a form of communication called facilitated communication, that got maligned. Some people think it's been debunked. It's not. They think it's not valid. The problem with a lot of these methods is that people worry about the partner's influence, because like when my son is learning right now, I'm holding the board for him. So what we do with the kind of training that I'm giving Carter is that he's learning to point all on his own without me touching him. Eventually, like some kids do eventually get to a keyboard, or adults, some individuals get to a keyboard that's propped up. And so with those individuals, you can absolutely see they're just pointing on their own. It's absolutely their words. There are individuals that may never get to that point because everyone's motor profile is unique. And some people have really, really, really tough motor, complex motor challenges to overcome. And a partner, it's hard to understand, but having a partner, even if they're just holding the board or the keyboard, there's an emotional component where the partner is emotionally regulating, because that emotional regulation is part of them being able to get their body to do what they want to do. Because with apraxia, that's a lot of it. And as a psychologist, you can probably understand this. It's like fight or flight, right? Like if we get in a panicked state, some people will just freeze and not be able to move. It's comparable to that. Like if a kid, and there's a lot of anxiety for a lot of kids with autism. So if they're stuck, they can't get their body to do what they want. And so this partner, and ideally, kids and adults and individuals that use this for communication, if they need a partner, ideally they'll be able to work with many different people as they grow older, as they, because you don't want to be dependent on one person, right, to have to communicate. So that's just kind of like a short overview. But yeah.
Well, it's interesting because in Psycho-Cybernetics, which was written in the 60s, he gives examples of motor skills like stuttering that was impeded because of trauma-based anxiety and rejection of some kind in the brain. And once that was eliminated or overcome, the motor skills returned. Or sometimes, like Mel Tillis is a famous older musician, but when he spoke, he stuttered. When he sang, beautiful, no
It's
stutter.
amazing. Yeah.
And the anxiety went away, and so the motor skills returned.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, and again, I don't have any knowledge, you do, but I'm just wondering if we can eliminate some of the anxiety, can some of that motor skill return quicker?
Probably. That's another thing that I've really been ruminating on, and I actually just posted into one of my groups about this, is spellers. That's what we call people that spell, non-speakers or spellers. They consistently tell their parents, like, I need you to be calm. They're so impacted. They're so empathic. They feel like everything. And so the calmer, and it's a bit of an irony, right? Because most autism parents are stressed to the max. They're worried about the kid's future. They have a lot going on. And so in the middle of that all, the kid is saying, I need you to be calm. Like, and
Well,
that was that was another thing that I had going for me with Carter, is that was something that was such a focus of my life. I've always just been obsessed with peace and like internal peace. And so it's been something I've worked on. And some of the practitioners we've worked on have said, well, that's your gift. And my husband too, we're just very calm with him. Like, we don't get upset. We don't freak out with him. And I didn't understand at first, like, the significance of it. But the more that I learn from other spellers and non-speakers and parents and other practitioners, the more I realized, oh, that's why it was like so important that we were so calm. I just realized I didn't totally answer your question of why,
Go ahead.
Why it's taken so long, which every parent wants to know that. Let me tell you, like, that's one of the first questions. And why, okay, so there's levels, this is an onion, okay, because there's politics, there's things going on in the world that are kind of working against these methods. Now, that kind of why is like a hard thing to answer, right? Because it could be people's jobs can be like threatened because this is a new way of doing things. And so it's going to eliminate a whole lot of other therapies that are completely outdated and not relevant anymore. So there's that kind of like energy and that kind of like low level stuff going on. As far as like why we didn't know though that the kids were in there, it's because they literally couldn't show us, and we didn't think of like, oh, so this whole thing it is hard for people to understand, because it's like, well, if they can point to this letterboard, then why wouldn't they just start typing, right? It's because it's really difficult for them, for one. Like, even holding these letterboards up, they start on a 3-board system where the alphabet is broken into 3 parts so that the letters are extra big. Okay, so I'm forgetting now, it's like eight letters or 9 on each board to make up the 26 letters. So they're a good size, so they can point. The way they teach it to us is that you're taking it out of fine motor, which is like fingers, and your vocal cords are very, very fine motor. You're taking it out of fine motor, which is more difficult, and putting it into a gross motor skill. And so you're helping them by just pointing, just like this. And they aren't always super accurate at the beginning or good at it. It takes a lot of practice. Carter and I have been doing it for a year, and we're still not fully on the 26th board yet, and doing it most days. And so that's how you can explain it to people, like why they can't just go to a keyboard. There are examples of kids that type on a keyboard that it just becomes an automatic loop, because that's a danger with our kids too. Things become automatic in their brains. Like if you see any autistic kid, like mine will like run back and forth. That's a motor loop. And there's lots of reasons for that. It can be regulating for them. It can feel good. Or it could just be like they're stuck. Sometimes they're in a motor loop and they don't want to do it, but they cannot stop, because starting something is hard for our kids, and stopping is also hard because they're not in control of their bodies. That's the kind of mantra. So anyways, that's why, it's taken a long time, because all of these cognitive tests require you to either say something or write something or point to something, and our kids would point unreliably. If you hold up 2 cards, like in some of the therapies, they'll say point to the tree or point to the chair. They will sometimes point at the right one, and sometimes they won't, because they literally aren't in control of their bodies, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, very, very much so. And again, similar to children with Tourette's, or I've had a friend who had not only verbal Tourette's, but the physical, would always be flailing an arm or a shoulder or, whatever, just not in control of that part of the motor skills. And so I can understand all this.
Awesome.
There's a new movie that just came out. It's called Ezra, and it's Robert De Niro and Jim Caravelli. Anyway, and Rainn Wilson, the guy from The Office, and the child has autism, and it's a very well done story of how to interact with this child, and how the child not only is being taught, but is actually teaching his parents, So anyone who is interested in a good story, and B, the world of autism, do check out Ezra. It's probably not going to stay in the theaters by the time this come out, but definitely pick it up on a streaming service because you'll find compassion where it's not normally found. And one of the things that a lot of my friends do is horse therapy.
Yeah.
There's some beautiful connection between all humanity and horses, but especially with the autistic, the calming, the sensory overload for autistic individuals is very much a part of whether they're out of control or in control, because they get sensory overload and they don't know how to process all of that. And so it looks like they're out of control whenever actuality they're just overwhelmed. So, the horses and the bond kind of helps calm all that. So I think that it's a great opportunity for anyone who has autistic individuals. Take them around some animals that are actually calm by nature and see if isn't a difference in their child. What is the overall consensus in the non-speaking families? Because especially when you have children who are both autistic and not autistic, that family dynamic isn't always pleasant because siblings don't always understand why their older or younger sibling can't act in the same way they do. I think you guys, because of the homeschooling that you did, already created an environment to where that wasn't as big a factor, but it cannot possibly be that way in all of the people that you know.
I think honestly, well, first of all, I have to say I don't have a whole lot of in-person connections, believe it or not, partly because we've moved a lot and partly because of Carter's age. And that's one of my actual big goals, is to start creating more of an in-person community, to start connecting with more autistic families that are like, in person. But I will say the stories I hear online it's remarkable. Yes, it's hard for kids. It is absolutely hard, but kids understand. And the siblings are largely very, very compassionate, and they're often some of the most compassionate people in the world because they see what their sibling has gone through. They see what their parents have gone through. There's plenty of stories of kids that go on, like that's what they want to do, is help, autistic individuals. So I think by and large, yes, it is hard and it's going to vary family to family, but you'd be amazed how amazing these siblings can be. Yeah.
So what can outsiders who are compassionate for families like yours who are in this, world, what can they do to be more supportive or understanding or
Yeah.
just kind? Because
Yeah. Yeah, no, kindness goes a long ways. So one thing I want to talk about that applies to that, but also just applies to all families, anyone who's learning about this, is this idea of presuming competence, because we've talked about how now we know the kids are in there. Not only are they in there, but they're pretty much like cognitively just like the rest of the population, which is it's a big shift. So presuming competence means that we believe they can learn. We believe that they're hearing us and that they understand us, even when their bodies don't look like they are understanding us. And so we talk to them, we include them in the conversations. That can be difficult for people when they don't, they're not used to it. But I just talk to Carter all the time. I just talk to him constantly, or ask him questions, even though I know he's not going to answer me verbally, and so talking to people, one of the big things for me has been getting Carter back out into the world, like post 2020 world. Like it was kind of crazy because we literally got him diagnosed. He had just turned 4 and like lockdowns happened. We were about to start trying to get him into some programs and things like that. And so we just kept him home. So he stopped going out into the world, stopped going to grocery stores and all this kind of stuff. And we got into that habit. So even when we started going back out into the world, we didn't necessarily start bringing him because it had gotten more difficult as he got a little older. And so that's been a huge thing for us. We've been working on it so hard, and he's doing great. It's just getting him out into like Walmart and you know, Whole Foods, and he's loud sometimes. He lets out these screeches that are like this high pitch, and I have to hold him pretty tight. Like he high knees in the he's laughing, and he's being himself, you know. And I stay calm, and I'm pretty confident bringing him out in the world, but it does help a lot. The people that smile at me make such a huge difference in my day, just feeling like, you know, or like say something nice. There are people that like make comments, like if he lets out a screech near them, like, wow, like offended or something. And I'm like, you know, like he can't help it. He can't stop it. And we can't keep him home his whole life. And so I think it is amazing the level of ignorance that still does exist, because this is becoming, it's pretty much an epidemic at this point. Like the numbers just keep going up. It's estimated that of the autistic population, it could be up to 40% are non-speaking or unreliably speaking. So that is a huge portion. So presuming competence, don't talk in front of them like they're not there, which, you know, if people have done that, if families have done that, it's okay. Like a lot of this stuff brings up a lot of shame and guilt for families, because they realize, oh my gosh, we have not been treating this loved one well because we didn't understand that they understand, you know? And so, yes, you have to grieve. You have to like, I'm not saying to suppress your feelings. You should let yourself feel what you have to feel, but you also have to let it go and forgive yourself and move on and just start trying to do better. Yeah, so assuming they can learn, and that includes with their body too, right? Like, so a lot of the therapists have taught me to presume competence in his body too, even though it's really hard for him to believe that he can do the things. It's just going to take a lot of work. I would love for people, if you're not a book reader, a free movie to watch on YouTube right now is Spellers the movie. And that goes through I think it has 6 different non-speaking or unreliably speaking young adults or teens that use spelling, some sort of spelling or keyboard to communicate. It is mind-blowing. The documentary is well done. It's beautiful. Like you will love it. You will need your box of tissues with you because you will cry. It's moving, and you will learn so much. And I don't think it's even 2 hours, you know, an hour and a half or something like that. So watching that movie would be really helpful, and just sharing this information. It costs you nothing. It's life-changing. It's literally life-changing. There are so many families that have autistic kids that think that their kid is cognitively disabled, that think that their kid doesn't understand and that they can't learn and that they won't ever communicate. And this could change their lives. And so if you share this with people, most people have someone in their lives. Most people have either a friend or a family member. And so just by sharing and encouraging them to give it a try, a lot of autism families have tried many, many different things. They've tried so many like medical interventions or so many different therapies. And sometimes they get to a point where they just don't have hope anymore and they're just tired. And so sometimes they need to hear about this more than once, and from different sources and from different people. So I would say those are the top ways that people can really support this change, because what we really need is for it to become like societal wide, where it just becomes like, oh yeah, of course, like you have a kid that can't talk, then they're going to do this, you know, that's what we do. That would be amazing.
Normalizing the abnormal. And this is a rabbit hole I won't pursue with you, but most of my friends who have autistic children, not all of them started off as autistic, but when they started doing the vaccine shots for school, suddenly, almost to a T, they will say, within X amount of time, my child was no longer my child. And again, it's a rabbit hole it's polarizing and I don't want to go down it, but I do believe when our brains aren't fully developed till 25 and you're hammering them with that much chemical change instantaneously, something's bound to happen.
Yeah. There
Your
are
thoughts?
even within autism community, this is a controversial issue, but you will find there are many, many more families and parents that are open to that than in the general population, I would say. There are kids that are autistic that did not receive vaccines, for sure.
Right.
But that doesn't mean, what I have come to learn and to believe is that, yes, there is without doubt environmental causes going on, and it's we live in a toxic world. There's toxins in our air, there's in our food, and then yes, we're injecting them, and so each individual has a certain level, and we don't know where that level is, where if it gets too much, if it's like they have a cup, if it starts to overflow, then these are the consequences. And so it doesn't have to be one particular thing, is what I'm getting at. And there can be particular things that are highly implicated. And you will find a lot of people that believe that. I think, yeah. And the thing is that a lot of autistic individuals have a lot of health issues too. And not all, like Carter is by and large very healthy, but we're still working with a more natural minded doctor with some herbal supplements, see if they help him with various things. But yeah, it's complex. There's a lot going on for a lot of different people. So people are usually trying a whole bunch of different things.
I find, again, and this is just my psychology love, I find it interesting the similarities between people who are in a coma, people who have had a stroke, and now what you're saying about autistic people. They all know when you're talking to them, they all know what's going on. They just are all locked in a different state of themselves. And I just find that really fascinating, the similarities. The other thing that is now becoming more accepted is the use of medical marijuana or CBD or any of that. Have any of your community experienced any results with that, or have they tried that?
I have heard some stories. Yes, 100%. I've had a friend that has had some success with that. I think I followed someone online that had some success. I'm trying to remember like what exactly they were treating with it. I mean, I know anxiety is like rampant in our communities. So, and I know that can be something that helps with. I myself, we have not had to go that route because, like I said, Carter, we are very, very fortunate that his physical profile, he's very physically healthy. He appears to be happy, and soon enough he'll be able to tell us, I think, whether that's true or not. Sometimes when they're anxious, they laugh, sometimes, which we understand, right? Like when you get really like, oh
yeah.
So he has a little of that going on too sometimes, but he's a happy kid. So
well, I know some people who have used it for epilepsy, and it has calmed their brain. So I was just wondering if the calming effect would help with the brain, or if it has any implications.
It's definitely being explored. And when you said that, I think that's what I've heard it used for, because epilepsy is actually another common issue for kids with autism, believe it or not. And sometimes, I just learned this recently, it can be triggered in puberty. So kids that didn't have seizures can suddenly start having them, which, like, what a nightmare, right? When you've already been dealing with so much. But yeah, your analogy was spot on about them being trapped in their bodies. That's exactly how these individuals describe it. They've been like, I think it would be great for people listening to try and imagine what it's like for these people. They're like literally 100% cognitively intact and unable, and then treated like they're stupid. A lot of the therapies, they have them do the same thing every day over and over at like kindergarten, first grade level, all the way up until they age out. It's like a form of torture. And this is what these people live with. And a lot of them, when they become able to communicate, are still the kindest, most forgiving, compassionate. Some are angry, and they have every right to be angry. They've been treated horribly. And this is just a great case for making for like, a lot of the thing with presuming competence is like doing the least harmful thing. Why haven't we treated them well? Like, what was the reason? Like, if we didn't know if they were cognitively intact, why weren't we doing it just to be safe? And so that's kind of like the leap of faith that parents have to start making, because I'll tell you what, the number one parents things that they say is like, well, that works for that kid, but my kid can't do that. No, like most people see this and they think my kid's not special like that. And that's why the movies are so powerful, because they'll see that these kids have the same mannerisms. They'll see, oh, they are autistic. They do look severe, whatever that means to you. They can see that they have, whatever it is. And so they will be able to relate to that and understand, okay, this is possible for my kid. This is another book that I'm reading right now. It's called The Book of Heaven, also written by a mom and Houston. It's Katie and Houston Asher. Houston is also non-speaking. Probably one of the most severe cases I've ever read of like autism, as far as like all the health issues, like eloped all the time. Like she would lose, like he would leave. It was very scary. So many scary things. And you would think that if you saw him, people would think he was cognitively disabled, and he's not. He's brilliant. So parents need to understand, and that's what most individuals want them to know, is like, I'm not special. Your kid can do this too. Or if it's not a kid, your adult. People are starting this in their 30s, 40s, 50s. One of our practitioners had like a 50-something. It's never too late. And to get them out of that cage that they've been stuck inside is absolutely life-changing for them and everyone that knows them. It's incredible.
I think that your family is incredible and the journey you've been on is incredible. As we kind of wrap into this, I want to make sure that we get to everything that you wanted to speak on. So are there any other touch points that you want to make sure are addressed?
I think we touched on the touch points. The project that I have right now is supporting parents that are homeschooling their non-speaker. And everyone that has joined is also working on spelling with their child. And so I guess that would be the last thing, is this, along with this kind of revolution, some people call it a revolution, I call it a paradigm shift. There is also a revolution in education happening, which, as you know, like I was experiencing an education revolution before Carter, but it's even more important for these kids that are, most of these kids are put into self-contained classrooms where it's just a group of autistic or disabled kids, and they're not taught, they're not given an education that they deserve. And so that is slowly changing, but I don't know how you feel. I feel that schools and bureaucracies and systems like that are way too slow. If it's my kid, I'm not going to bet on this system to change. And so more and more parents are realizing that their kid's not even being treated with respect, much less given an education, and they're realizing they can do better at home. But it's scary. It's a scary thing to do. And so that's why I'm pretty lucky, because I kind of just like slid into it. It kind of was just like the natural trajectory of my life, that Carter was home and he stayed home with me and I didn't have to think about it. And so now I'm supporting other families as they are starting, or some of them have been homeschooling for a couple of years, but they just want to be in a community of other people that are doing the same thing. And so that's my current project.
Well, we will put a link to that project in the comments and in the post when this video comes out. Ironically, one of the people that I'm currently coaching, one-on-one coaching, her job is to work with autistic children every day. And she talks about her own frustration of the job because of the bureaucracy, and you have to follow this checklist, and you can't do this or you can't do that. And so, she's extremely frustrated in her job by seeing the bureaucracy you're just talking about. And she talked about the eloping. She didn't use that word, but she talked about it, and what they're allowed to do or not allowed to do when a child is acting this way. And I said to her the other day, in one of our coaching sessions, if the child is just laying on the floor throwing a tantrum, what are you supposed to do? And she's like, well, we're not allowed to do anything. I said, have you ever just gotten down on the floor with the child and just laid there with the child?
Yeah.
Like, meet them where they're at instead of where the wheel wants them to be. Like, she's like, no, I've never done that. I'm like, maybe give that a try and see if it
Right.
works. Like,
Yeah.
just meet them where they're at,
Yep.
But I'd be interested to have you guys connect and talk. Maybe you
Sure.
could help each other find new ways to help these children,
Definitely.
which I think is important. What is one thing, if there was one takeaway that you want people to come away with, what would be the one thing that you want them to really, and we probably already talked about it, but what would be the one thing that you want to hit home for their understanding?
I mean, I really think it's simply that they're in there. Over and over again, they will spell that I'm in here. And that we need to believe it. Whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a therapist, whether you're just the general public or you're a family member, you need to believe it and you need to start treating them accordingly. Treat them with respect and love, and understanding. It is very hard to understand when they're doing things that just drive you nuts. So understanding this mind-body disconnect, look up apraxia and read up on it and understand that most of the time they're not in control of what they're doing. And I know that's frustrating, but but most families see is when you start treating them with that respect and that love and keeping them in the loop, like, hey, this is what we're going to do today, because lots of times they're not. They actually, for many of them, will start to calm down, to be less anxious, and to be able to cooperate more often. It's not 100%, it's not a cure-all, but it helps so much when you just start talking to them at age level. Don't talk to them like babies. If they're an adult man, talk to them like an adult man. That's what they are craving, that's what they need. And start feeding their brains, start playing like amazing podcasts for them, or cool documentaries, or reading books to them, like real literature, real history, real science. They are sponges and they're soaking it all up. So that's the most important thing.
When you said I'm in here, and that's what they've spelled and said, I got head to toe goosebumps. So I
Well,
know that is like, so spot on. I'm going to ask you the one final question that I ask all my guests.
mhm.
What does a warrior spirit or having a warrior spirit mean to Susan May?
Okay, I knew this was coming. I did my research, so
Yeah,
I'm
watched a
glad.
show or two.
I did. I don't think I would have been ready. So first thing I want to say is, to be honest, I don't feel like a warrior. I've never identified with that word, and part of it is because I really think I've just had kind of an easy life. I know people might think that's crazy, especially having an autistic child, but you heard about my childhood. Like I sometimes feel guilty about that. So I haven't had a lot of trauma, but um I know in the autism community, like warrior mothers is like just such an identity. And if I had to say, it's the fact that we will never give up. Like never giving up is like what the warrior spirit is. And sometimes we feel like we're going to give up. And so like I always encourage people, resting is not giving up. Like if you need to take a break, that's not giving up. Um, and you're going to fall down like a million times, but then we just keep getting back up. The other thing that came to me today is that warriors know that battles are not fought or won alone. And I think that's so crucial because autism is very isolating. It's getting better as more people understand. And as we create these communities, online communities have been, I think, just lifesavers for so many families, so many mothers and fathers. But we're not alone, like even if you're a warrior, you're not fighting it alone. And so to me, it's like never giving up. And when you feel like you're going to lose hope or lose faith, like connecting with your community, like with your, your warrior tribe, and making sure that they're going to help you get back up, because we cannot give up. Like, I was watching one of your interviews and you guys talked about there being a choice, right? Like, whatever our circumstances in life, there's a choice. And that's true for us parents, but it's actually not true for our kids. They actually don't have that ability to choose if someone doesn't help them, which is really, really crazy when you think about it. Like, they're counting on us to not give up on them, because until we can get them their voice, they don't have that. They don't have an ability to tell us what the choice is. And so that's like pretty unique. It's a difference that it's hard for us to grasp. So that's what came up for me when I thought about being a warrior.
Well, I definitely feel like you embody what a warrior and a warrior spirit is, because it's all of those things that you mentioned. And I think many of us, if we have a child or a friend or somebody who isn't quote unquote normal, and whether that be autism, epilepsy, Down syndrome, whatever, I think a lot of the natural instinct, yes, we're going to take care of them. Yes, we're going to provide for them. But a lot of parents, I think, give up on their kid because they don't know what you know and what you've discovered and what you've found out. I think it's easier to resign ourselves to that's just the way it is, instead of doing the hard work that you're doing to make the changes, not only a difference in Carter's life, but all children who are inflicted with this in their life. And so I truly do believe that you embody the warrior spirit. But I hope that anyone listening to this takes away, don't give up on your kid.
Absolutely. And Daryl, I just have to say one more thing, because you made me think of it. And I meant to say this long ago. It's not just autistic kids, Down syndrome kids. It's almost spot on the same thing. There's a woman in our community that she's a practitioner, and her son has Downs. And it's the same thing. And many Downs kids can talk. And so people think that's their cognitive ability, that their speech represents their cognitive ability, and it does not. They can spell at like a much higher level. And the same thing. So really, this is not just for autism. It's for anyone who has trouble speaking, to speak for their communication needs. So I just wanted to make sure I drove that home, because I don't want people to think it's just for autism. It is not.
Well, I think what you're doing is a beautiful thing. And I know it took us a while to come together to do this, but I'm so glad that you did. And we'll put the links out for anyone who wants to connect and learn more. And I encourage, Spellers, the movie, Ezra, the movie, and, do your research and really teach yourself what the medical community is not going to teach you. Because whether it's this or the inflictions that my wife is going through or anything else, there's no profit in being well. So they're not going to get you well. You have to do it yourself.
Agreed.
So, well, blessings to you and your family. And if there's any way we can help you, just let us know. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Daryl.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of A Warrior Spirit. We're now on all the major platforms, as well as Roku via the Prospera TV app, so be sure to like or subscribe to catch all the episode. And as always, the journey is sacred, the warrior is you, so remember to be inspired, be empowered, and embrace the spirit of the warrior within.
It's not just about the fight, it's how we rise from it. This is your Prospera.
hope you enjoyed today's show on Prospera TV network. Make it a point to visit us on YouTube and catch all your favorite shows anytime you want. Interested in hosting a show of your own? Or advertising your business on our network? Contact Elena Rodriguez.